While it is lovely being able to initialize a new repo, we still don't know how to do anything inside of those repos. But that's going to change because we're about to talk about the most fundamental Git workflow, the bread and butter of Git, which is committing. So just like before, we're going to start with a quick high-level conceptual overview and intro to the concept of committing, which is what this video is, and then I'll show you the associated commands, there's two that we need to talk about, in the next couple of videos. So let's begin by answering a simple question. What is committing, or what is a Git commit? Well, early in this course, I showed these slides. I spent kind of a long time making them. On the top right-hand corner, we have a website that I'm building. And you can see as I progress, feature by feature, I'm building this site out and modifying it. And then as I go, as I make some progress, I'm adding these checkpoints. That was a term I used when I first introduced these. A checkpoint, a snapshot of my project and its new changes at a moment in time, along with a little message like add top navbar, or add first row of content, or finish bottom row of content, change to dark theme. Well, each one of these checkpoints is actually in Git what we would call a commit. I just used the term checkpoint early on before we actually start learning Git because it actually makes sense on its own. A commit doesn't really sound like much, at least in my experience. Anyway, a Git commit is one of these checkpoints in a Git repository. And typically, a single Git repository has tons and tons of these commits, one after another. And eventually we'll learn how to go back to earlier commits, how to undo commits, how to just take a peek at an earlier commit. But for now, we're just going to focus on making these checkpoints. How do we do some stuff in a project? How do we, add a new feature to a website and then make a commit? And then repeat. Do some more stuff, make a commit. Do some more stuff, make a commit. That is our goal for the next couple of videos. I'll quickly show you an existing repository that I have this is Git Kraken, YelpCamp 2.0. I've shown this a couple of times. What I'm looking at right here with this GUI is a list of all of the commits that I've made in order. And actually there's more than one contributor, so it's not just me. So you can see here's the very first commit, all the way up to some of the more recent ones. So there's over 100, maybe 150 at least, individual commits, and each one of them is a checkpoint in time, a snapshot of the repository and the new work that I did, the new changes, and it includes a little message like, refactor async error handler and post methods, or something very silly and boring like initial commits, or, add Mapbox CSS back to some style sheet. Whatever that message is up to me, but there is a message along with this snapshot of my project in time. Now, the next thing that's crucial to understand about making a commit is that it's not the same as just saving a file. It's actually, think of it as something that's built on top of saving files. We have to make changes first and save them to our files before we can even commit. So we might use the term checkpoint or save point, but we're not talking about just saving a file. That has nothing to do with Git. We save files all the time. But once we have made changes, we can then group them together into a commit. So on the right-hand side, I'm showing potentially a commit that I may have made that includes changes to 4 different files plus a folder called logos, and I can group that all together into a new commit. But first, I would have written some new code in one of these files and saved it, and then written more code in another one and saved it. Then I make that commit. And the next thing that you need to know about making a commit is that it's actually a multi-step process. It's not as simple as just hitting a button that says commit, commit, commit. Instead, there's an intermediate step where we actually call out the particular changes that we've made that we want to include in a commit. And this allows us to selectively make commits, which is really, really nice. For example, imagine I've been working all day or all morning on some project. I spent a lot of time working on this project, and I made changes to 7 different files. As you can see on the left-hand side, I deleted a file, I modified 2 files, I created 4 files. And instead of just making one generic commit that just says checkpoint right now, instead, I can actually call out some of these and group them together based upon the actual stuff that I did. For example, I might group together those first 3 changes. I deleted a file called team.html, and then I changed 2 files called about.html and about.css. Those were one thing that I did across 3 files. I added some new team members to our about page, whatever the about page looks like. So that was one commit. And then I can take these other 4 changes and group them together into a separate standalone commit. So this is what I'm talking about when I say there's an intermediate step. We can select certain changes and make a commit with those changes. So we don't just say commit, commit, commit. Instead, we're getting in there with tweezers and we're saying, all right, this and this and this. Now we're going to commit those changes. So to actually make a commit, there are 2 associated commands. And we're going to talk about the first one in the next video. It's called git add. And then the second command is git commit. And we'll use git add in order to highlight or select those changes that we want to include in the upcoming commit. So just to reiterate all of this, a commit is a checkpoint in time. It's a snapshot of changes in our repository. Eventually, we'll be able to go back to earlier commits, undo commits, merge commits. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do. For now, we're just focused on plotting ahead and leaving a trail of commits behind, a trail of checkpoints. And when we make one of these snapshots, one of these commits, we can call out the specific changes that we want to include in a commit. Rather than just automatically including all changes in our project, we can select them, that's the first step, and then commit them. So in the next video, I'll show you how to do that first bit.